I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. So real quick, here at the top, we do have two mini stories for you guys, and I have a couple smaller stories, but the vast majority of this episode is going to be spent discussing the Chinese spy balloons. Never did I think I would be using the word balloon so many times in one episode, and yet here we are. Anywho, let's go ahead and jump into it because there's a lot to discuss. A lot has gone down. For our first mini story, though, we are going to discuss air quality in Bangkok. So over in Thailand, in Bangkok, the air quality is very poor right now, and everyone there is being cautioned to stay indoors. You can physically see the smog in photos coming out of the area, and there's this type of dangerous air particle called a PM 2.5, and in Bangkok right now, their PM 2.5 levels are 14 times the recommended amount by the World Health Organization. So people are reporting their eyes burning as soon as they step outside. If you're listening from Bangkok right now, definitely stay safe and make sure to follow official local guidelines. Next up, great news, you guys. Employment has gone way up as of late. Last month, it was actually surprisingly good, and now unemployment is down to 3.4%, which is actually the lowest rate since 1969. Not too shabby. And one smaller story as well before we jump into the spy balloons. Up in the Northeast, we saw, with wind chill, negative 109 degree temperatures in, again, New England area. Places like Boston, Rhode Island, they got blasted, you guys, with an Arctic vortex that sent them into record-setting low temperatures. It was so cold that trees were literally cracking in half. And unfortunately, one did hit a car and killed a baby that was a passenger inside that car, which was super tragic. And the woman driving was the baby's aunt. And I think she was in very bad condition as well from the tree. Anyway, these natural disasters always come with people getting hurt, and this may not even be the only death associated with this latest storm, but we'll keep you guys posted if there's anybody else who's been found. The lowest recorded temperature, though, without the wind chill, was negative 47 degrees from the tippy top of Mount Washington. Officials in the area had to put the whole place in a code blue, which essentially just means that it was so cold they would not turn anybody away who was seeking shelter. This area even experienced something known as frostquakes, which maybe sounds like a cereal, but they're literally earthquakes that are caused by the cold cracking the earth open. I cannot make this stuff up. The weather phenomenon that we're seeing are just so unusual and really scary. Obviously, I hope everyone in the area stays safe and stays warm. And now, without further ado, we will get into the spy balloons. So, if you guys remember, back on Friday's episode, we touched on the fact that a Chinese spy balloon had floated into U.S. territory. And by the way, Friday's episode was entirely about our tensions with China, and that was written before the spy balloon was even sighted. We have a lot going on with us and China right now. And it seems that war may be imminent. So I would highly recommend going back and listening to Friday's episode if you haven't already, because there's just a ton of information and kind of a backstory here that puts this balloon into context. Anywho, it had come over from Canada down through Montana. Then we noticed a second one, and I couldn't find as much information about this second balloon, but I understand that it is somewhere in Latin America. I don't have a ton of detail on that, so don't quote me on that. I'm going to find more details for you guys on that one, but we'll focus on the main one for right now. Friday, I couldn't find a picture of the thing to describe it to you guys, but since then, a ton of pictures have come out. Basically, this spy balloon looks like a hot air balloon, but it's completely round. It was all white. It almost looks like it could be like made of paper or really thin fabric. Towards the bottom of it, it had some type of paneling that maybe looked like solar panels, if you guys know what those look like. And now a ton has happened with this balloon since Friday. So let's go over the turn of events, and I will just go in chronological order to keep things simple. So what's crazy about the timing here is that our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, was supposed to be going to China on a very rare diplomatic trip to the country to try to calm tensions. So following the discovery of these balloons, he canceled his trip, saying that he would go, quote, when the time was right, end quote, and that he couldn't put a time frame on that because things are changing so much every day with this dynamic. So then China spoke out. Initially, they responded by saying that this was a civilian weather balloon that simply got off course. Whoops. They tried to play it off like a simple accident, and they said that they, quote unquote, regretted it. But unauthorized aircraft entering another country is actually against international law. So even if it was an accident, it's still illegal and left us in kind of an awkward, what do we do with this thing kind of mode. Which leads me to what happened next. Basically, the Pentagon had been considering shooting down the balloon pretty much from the time that we spotted it. And, you know, they did have to consider civilians below this balloon. They didn't really know what was inside of it, and debris could potentially hurt someone if it fell on someone. So they didn't want that to happen. So they waited until the balloon drifted out over the Atlantic Ocean somewhere off the shore of the Carolinas, and they shot it down using fighter jets. Now, why they chose to shoot it instead of like capturing the thing to figure out what it was doing is beyond me. You would think that that would be a good opportunity for intel of some sort to see what information they were gathering on us, but I'm sure they had their reasons. Experts have guessed that the balloon was being used to gather information on U.S. radar systems, but we can't be sure, at least as of now. It drifted around the U.S., though, for 7 days, you guys, a full week. And listen, the Chinese were pissed when we shot it down, guys. They said it was an overreaction and that they are reserving the right to respond, which who even knows what that means exactly, but it doesn't sound good. And at the end of the day, this is our airspace, and the balloon was here in our country illegally, and the U.S. had every right to down it at the end of the day. Amid all this balloon drama, though, information has come out suggesting that China is more than likely helping Russia financially in their war and maybe supplying weapons and things of that nature as well. Now, in typical Chinese fashion, they're not doing so out in the open. You know, somebody had to follow the money to figure this out. But at the same time, we discussed this at length in Friday's episode. In terms of geopolitical alliances, this is one of the scariest, because if they are helping Russia and the U.S. is helping Ukraine, it begins to look a lot more like a world war that's being played out in this one little area. And that's incredibly dangerous and incredibly scary. We'll definitely keep you guys posted if there's anything to update you guys about. And last up for today, we're just going to do a quick story about Elon Musk's lawsuit. So if you guys remember, Elon Musk was being sued by some of his investors, saying essentially that his tweets caused them to lose money. Their lawyers were also worried about Elon being able to get a fair trial due to his public persona, his behavior, you could call it, just Elon being Elon. Well, as it turns out, the jury sided with Elon. They found that Elon Musk was not liable for the losses incurred when he tweeted that he had the funding to take Tesla private, and he didn't. After the verdict came out, Musk obviously took to Twitter to celebrate his win, posting, quote, "Thank goodness the wisdom of the people has prevailed," end quote. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Givers have to set limits because takers never do." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.